Welcome back, everybody. Today is another episode of NBA Jeopardy, and before I get started, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for all the support on last week's first ever episode, as it had the highest like to view ratio of any video that I've ever put out, and the comment section was filled with encouraging feedback, so thank you guys for that. This week I have 7 players to go through, and this time I'm a little bit more focused on their stats and accomplishments and draft position, rather than all that salary stuff that kind of lost some people from last week. Let's go ahead and get started. First up is a big man that's been in the spotlight a lot over the past few years, but likely won't be as high profile of a player this season. He's a former top 5 pick and has shown a unique ability to space the floor and rebound. He led the league in rebounds in 2011 and then went on to win the All-Star 3-point shootout competition in 2012. And he's the only player in NBA history to record 15 rebounds per game and shoot 40+% from 3-point range in the same season. And the player is Kevin Love. I wanted to start off with a bit of an easier one this week because a lot of people said that the clues from last week were a bit too difficult. Love has been a prominent part of each of the past few seasons, playing alongside LeBron James with the Cavaliers, but with James now in LA, Love will likely find himself in the spotlight a lot less. As I said, he led the league in rebounds with 15.2 in 2011 and won the 2012 3-point shootout competition at the All-Star break. And that 2011 season is the one in which he did something that literally nobody else in NBA history has ever done. He shot over 40% from 3 on almost 3 attempts per game to go along with those crazy rebounding numbers. Now, I know that we all kind of now think of Love as the third wheel to those Cleveland teams behind James and Kyrie Irving, but back in Minnesota, he put up some ridiculous numbers at times, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get a glimpse of that once again this season in Cleveland, now that he's the best player left on the roster. Next up is a perimeter player, a former top 5 pick, that went through the first 6 seasons of his career, making it pretty clear to everyone what kind of player he was. A past first point guard that averaged 10 points and 8 assists per game, without ever being a real threat from 3-point range. But then the script was completely flipped this past season, as he averaged 13 and 5 and showed drastic improvement in his 3-point accuracy, going from a sub 32% shooter to that point in his career to over 35% in the 2017-18 season. And the player is Ricky Rubio. This one honestly kind of surprised me as I looked through the career of Rubio, because I just didn't realize how different his stats were this past season compared to any other in his career. I knew that he shot better from the outside with the Jazz this season, but for his per game averages to shift pretty dramatically from a .2 assist standpoint was definitely surprising. It makes sense once you think about it, because with Donovan Mitchell and Joe Ingles on the roster, they had other guys they could rely on to make plays, and with Rubio's increased accuracy from 3, it made it easier to play him off the ball more as well. Now, he's never going to be a 20-point per game scorer or anything, and he's still a pass-first player in my mind, but this newfound versatility is certainly encouraging for him and is well-timed as a 2019 unrestricted free agent. Next up is another guard, a former number 1 overall pick that did something pretty special in one of his seasons so far in the league. He's one of just 5 players since the ABA-NBA merger to average 23 points per game and 10+ assists per game in a single season, and was the youngest of that group to accomplish it at just 26 years old at the time. However, his career field goal percentage is just right around 43% and has a very, very high turnovers per game average. And that player is John Wall. Had I not said that the player was a former number 1 overall pick, then I would imagine that most of you likely would have guessed Russell Westbrook here, but for all the hate that Russ gets for his turnovers and shooting percentage numbers in the face of the incredible statistical performances he's put up over the course of the past few seasons, not many fans think of Wall as in that same category of inefficiency or historical statistical company. The other 4 players outside of Wall to average 23 and 10 in a single season are Magic Johnson, James Harden, Westbrook, and Michael Adams, but none of them accomplished that feat while still just 26 years old. Next up is a big man and former top 3 pick who's been named to an all-rookie team, an all-star team, an all-defense team, and an all-NBA team throughout his career. But despite his status as one of the better bigs in the league during that time, He's only averaged a double-double once to this point in his career and hasn't averaged more than 8 rebounds per game since the 2013-14 season. And the player is Al Horford. Because big men aren't really at the front of the minds of most NBA fans, and especially not ones like Horford, this one might have been a bit tough to get at first. What might have given it away was when I started talking about the rebounding numbers, because that's the one talking point that seems to continue to come up about Horford specifically, and the Celtics in general, being their lack of strength on the glass. Having said that, he's been a consistent force throughout his career with a double-digit points per game average in every single season so far, and proved his value to the Celtics throughout the regular and postseason a year ago, despite objections from some fans about his inclusion as an all-star when you look at his per game averages from that season. Despite those numerous accolades and awards I mentioned, however, Basketball Reference only puts him at about a 10% chance of making it to the Hall of Fame at this point. Moving on, we have a guard and former top 10 pick. He averaged less than 7 points per game in each of his first 2 seasons, before breaking out as the league's most improved player and posting 20-plus point per game seasons in every single year since. He was also the NBA's free throw percentage leader in 2017 and has proven to be extremely durable, missing only 5 games combined over the last 3 seasons. And the player is CJ McCollum. In my opinion, this is probably the easiest answer in the entire video. It's pretty well known that McCollum struggled to stay on the court in his first 2 seasons, playing just 100 games combined over those 2 years, and even when he was on the court, he didn't look anything like the dynamic scoring guard he is now. In the 2015-16 season, he was given a big opportunity to be a playmaker in the backcourt for Portland, and certainly took advantage and hasn't looked back since, winning the Most Improved Player award that year. It's pretty incredible how dependent and consistent he's been the past 3 seasons, given how his career started, and although it's fair to question how far the combination of him and Damian Lillard can take the Blazers in the postseason, they're at the very least a very entertaining duo at the guard spots. Next up is a perimeter player and former top 5 pick that's already played for 4 different teams in his 8-year career so far. He spent 3 full seasons with the team that drafted him, but was traded in the middle of what was his best statistical campaign to that point in his career, and he went on to only average more than 10 points per game in 1 of the 4 full seasons following the trade, but nonetheless, he did cash in on a huge contract in the summer of 2016. And the player is Evan Turner. The second overall pick in 2010, Turner has had a solid career to this point, but not really the one that you would have expected given his draft position. He had an up and down start in Philly, but as I said, was having a pretty good 2013-14 season from a statistical standpoint before being traded to Indiana and being signed by Boston the following summer. He did revitalize his career a bit under head coach Brad Stevens with the Celtics, which led to him signing that huge deal in the summer of 2016, but as with many contracts from that offseason, the Blazers are likely experiencing a bit of buyer's remorse given both his production since the signing and their current cap situation and league standing. Last up is a guy who right now, according to Basketball Reference, has a 99% chance of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. He's averaged 17, 12, and 2 over the course of his career and led the league in rebounding 5 times, in blocks twice, and in field goal percentage once. He's one of just 3 players since the NBA-ABA merger to average 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game, and he's done that 3 times so far in his career, while the other 2 players only accomplished it once. And the player is Dwight Howard. This one came to mind because I've seen a good amount of conversation recently about whether or not Howard belongs in the Hall of Fame or where he stands in the league hierarchy in terms of the best bigs of all time, and I think at times we kind of forget how much of a statistical monster this guy has been at times in his career. The list that I mentioned, players that averaged over 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game in a single season since the merger, is one that he shares with Moses Malone and Hakeem Olajuwon, who both, as I said, only accomplished it once, while Howard did it 3 times at 22, 25, and 26 years old. Now, obviously, he has had his fair share of locker room issues and hasn't been nearly the same player in recent seasons, but that doesn't take anything away from how dominant he was in his younger years. As indicated, by his extremely high probability of making it into the Hall of Fame. And there you have it, NBA Jeopardy Episode 2. This will likely either be a weekly or bi-weekly thing moving forward, since so many of you enjoyed it. And just like last time, if you have any suggestions on how to improve this series, then please feel free to leave those in the comment section. My name is Tucker, this has been Sporting Logically. If you missed any of my previous Monday, Wednesday, Friday videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.